All right, one last question on it. Because the issue, one of the things that gets thrown at, I think on a popular level, dispensationalism is, if you're a dispensationalist, then you're pro-Israel politically. Mm-hmm. So you're committed to the nation of Israel right now. Now, personally, I don't think that follows. That the nation of Israel that went back in 48 is somehow a prophetic fulfillment of things, because I don't know. I mean, when the Lord's going to come back. I mean, it could go out of existence and come back into existence before the Lord comes back. Is there anything inherent in dispensationalism that would make you politically pro-Israel? Or is that just an odd question?
Well, in the way that I think you're wording it, I would say no. I mean, the thing is, if you're a dispensationalist, you do understand that someday God's going to bring Israel back in unbelief, right, to establish certain events that will lead eventually to their salvation. So we do know eventually that they will be in their land. But we have to understand, too, that Israel's also under the times of the Gentiles, right, according to Luke 21:20-24. There's a sense in which a lot of the turmoil that they're going through is related to their rejection of Christ. So for all of a sudden just say Christians drop everything and support Israel and everything that they do, I don't necessarily know, right, that that's biblical.
Because it's not the theocracy.
It's right.
I mean, the current state of Israel is not actually the theocracy of the Old Testament, because the glory's departed, and and then you have Jesus, right, essentially saying what he says. So it seems to me that that's where sometimes popular level dispensationalism, which just simply says these are God's chosen people, which is true of the Jewish people, is not necessarily true that this is the political entity which bears God's blessing on it, like the Old Testament. Does that make sense?
Right. And they are in a time of partial temporary.
Right. And I think that sometimes is because there are some people who would call themselves dispensationalists who seem to talk as if Israel is currently right now fulfilling Scripture.
Yeah, and we're mandated to support them.
And therefore our dispensationalism leads us to this political position, which in my position would be I'm pro-Israel and all of that, but it would be just out of politics.
Yeah. I would say we're called to treat all people who are in the image of God fairly and rightly, and they have a right to exist, and they have a right not to be bombed.
Right.
Yeah. And their neighbors have a right to be treated well too.
Right. So sometimes some dispensationalists have not helped the cause by sort of mixing together, the newspaper and the Bible.
Yeah, I think you have to be careful.
Right.
I mean, is it possible that this could be part of the? I mean, I think it is possible.
Right.
That there is
certainly
great significance, but we don't know that for sure. I mean, as you brought up, it may be and it may not be. I mean, I personally think that there's a good chance it may be.
Well,
but you have to be careful with declaring for sure that it's a fulfillment. Right?
And I can see certainly the context within which the things we see in the Scriptures could come together very easily in terms of covenant with Israel to protect them against their enemies and ushering in all of the things that we see in Scripture.
Right. Yeah.
So I wouldn't want to write it off, but I guess there's sort of a hesitancy on my part sometimes to have the the sort of paperback dispensationalism that maybe sensationalizes it into the Bible's being fulfilled in our newspapers today kind of a thing. So it moves in a direction that's different than what we're trying to actually say. Here's what God said He's going to do. If that's happening in time right now in setting it up, then that's in God's providence, and He'll bring it together.